Good morning. This is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, June 17th, 2025.
After a couple of generally quiet days, today and tomorrow, the real fire potential impacts return on Thursday with some strong winds across much of Utah and Nevada. We'll have most areas gusting up to 30 miles an hour in orange, but a few areas here in brown that will gust up to 50 miles an hour or so there along the Sierra Front and in northwest Utah and northeast Nevada. Yesterday was a quiet day for thunderstorms. We just had a few isolated storms there in the central Idaho mountains. Activity has been fairly steady in the Great Basin over the past week. We've seen fire activity picking up over southwest Idaho with a 75-acre fire here outside Boise and a couple of large fires outside Winnemucca over the last few days as well. The France fire on the Dixie National Forest continues to see significant growth. Precipitation for the past 7 days shown here on the left. Again, this is precip mostly from last week as it's been a pretty dry couple of days. And then the past 30 days, percent of normal still showing very dry conditions over the northern 2/3 of the Great Basin, with some of that abnormally high precipitation again left over from the end of May into the 1st of June. Fire danger values have been on the increase with the hot and dry air mass in place, especially over Utah over the past week or so. We have a couple of stations over the 97th percentile. Otherwise, many stations in parts of northern Utah are heading up towards that 80th to 90th percentile range. A close look at a few of these areas here in western Nevada showing ERCs are above the 80th percentile, getting close to that 90th percentile range and certainly setting records for the time of year. And then the central Nevada mountains are also very high for the time of year, right around those record levels. This morning's satellite imagery is showing generally dry westerly to northwesterly flow in place across much of the Great Basin, a few degrees cooler than yesterday's highs, but still warm for the time of year. At the forecast for today, looking for that westerly to northwesterly flow across the area. This is a dry flow with lighter winds and slightly cooler temperatures. No high risk triggers are issued for today. Again, we do have some breezy winds over northeast Utah. These are going to be those northwesterly winds, so slightly cooler, but still breezy coming down the lee side of those mountains there. And then showing maximum temperatures dip down mostly into the mid to upper 80s across most of the valleys, a little bit warmer on the west side. On Wednesday, the ridge quickly rebuilds back into the Great Basin for rapid warming and drying area-wide. Winds will be generally light tomorrow with no high risk across the area. Again, looking at generally light winds, maybe some breezy conditions over the central Idaho mountains and parts of western Wyoming. Minimum relative humidities are in the single digits across Utah and Nevada today with slightly higher tomorrow with slightly higher values over Idaho and Wyoming. On Thursday, we begin to see the pretty strong low pressure system beginning to move into the Pacific Northwest. This will bring increased gusty winds to much of the Great Basin, or much of Utah and Nevada anyway, with the strongest winds over western Nevada, eastern Nevada, and western Utah. So we do have high risk issued for many of these winds moving into the Great Basin beginning on Thursday. Closer look at where we're seeing those strongest winds here, right along the Sierra Front in western Nevada, gusts 30 to 45, 50 miles an hour in some areas. And then the same story over western Utah and far eastern Nevada, where these pink shades are more in the 35 to 45 miles an hour, and then these purples may be up closer to 50 miles an hour or so. So definitely another windy day on Thursday for our valley locations, and minimum relative humidity still being very low in the single digits across Nevada and Utah. 3-day precip totals show really not much in the way of precip, maybe a stray storm or two up here on the in the east central Idaho mountains and maybe far northern portions of western Wyoming as well. On Friday, that low continues to be the main story with some deepening and strengthening of that low pressure system. We see more widespread winds on Friday with more high risk triggers out there for still along the Sierra Front here into eastern Nevada, western Utah, higher elevations of southern Utah, and even we'll see some of those strong winds into eastern Utah by Friday, as well as further north in western Wyoming. On Saturday, that low deepens, moving further south, clipping northern California and northwest Nevada. We'll actually see some cooler temperatures moving into Idaho behind the front and maybe some precipitation as well, possibly starting as early as Friday. but the winds are still the main story for fire potential here in eastern Nevada and much of Utah as the trough drops a little bit further south. And then on Sunday, that main low swinging into Idaho, dragging cooler temperatures and some continued precipitation to the central Idaho mountains. This will generally be a dry cold front for Utah and Nevada, but we will see temperatures decreasing across much of the area by Sunday. But still some gusty winds still in the forecast over southeast Utah on Sunday ahead of that front. And then by Monday, cooler temperatures really spread throughout the entire Great Basin, but generally dry as that low weakens and starts to move out of the area. 7-day precip total is really not showing much with this low. Most of the precipitation is going to be to our north, but the northern portions of the central Idaho mountains will see some precipitation, maybe a quarter to a half an inch or so up there, otherwise dry elsewhere. And then the extended forecast, June 24th through the 30th, puts below normal temperatures across the southwest and the southern parts of the Great Basin, with generally near normal precipitation chances for Utah and Nevada, and maybe some slightly above normal chances for Idaho. That concludes today's briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.